I'm going to introduce myself really quick. My name is Milena. I'm a second-year communications student and a career peer advisor. I'm also the communication and arts peer at UCSB Career Services, working to help people discover their interests and improve their resumes and help achieve their professional goals. I personally am also curious about the design field and how to create a business out of artistic skills. And I'm so excited that we have our two panelists here today to talk about it. In background, Eric is a career counselor at UCSB, and he works for the Communication and Arts Department and served as the digital content and communication strategist for UCSB Career Services. He will also be helping answer your questions and anything general or specific. So now to introduce our panelists, I think we are still waiting for Lorenzo to be able to jump on as a host, but I will go ahead and introduce Jordan, who you can see on the screen. Jordan is a visual development artist under his name Monkey Boy Illustrations and an associate professor at Foothill College. He graduated from UCSB with a Bachelor of Arts in Art Studio and continued his artistic journey to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and where he went to graduate school for visual development. Jordan has a background in fine art as well as Adobe, Photoshop, etc., and other digital platforms. He also worked as a visual development artist for several mobile game and entertainment production companies in the Bay Area and is currently teaching at Foothill College. So perhaps what's most exciting about tonight's session is that we will be featuring two fabulous UCSB alumni with artistic ability who also have developed entrepreneurial abilities in their own journeys. So they're going to be able to give us some insight on that. So with that, let's give them a warm virtual welcome back to Lorenzo and Jordan. Okay, so we'll start with, we still only have Jordan on here, so
try to make it fun, try to make it entertaining.
Yes, so we're going to work with that as long as we can. Lorenzo's able to hear us currently, but just not speak, so we're working on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will start by asking you from your, because I kind of just went over an overview, but from your point of view, what is it that you exactly do for a living? What does a typical day look like in your position and in your industry, and the type of projects that your work entails?
Yeah, for sure. So I can talk about more the freelance side, and I can talk about the instructional stuff too. That could be kind of boring for students if they want to know what teachers are up to. But from a freelance side, a lot of it is, when I used to do freelance more full-time, was really hopping on phones, phone calls, answering emails to clients, talking about design specs that they want to work on. Like for example, it was like an infographic. We would meet and talk about the information, the content, the data that they would supply me, and then talk about the overall like aesthetic or look of they want for that data. And so one example was like a couple years ago, I did an infographic for a cybersecurity company, and they wanted to make an infographic about Santa's Workshop and how their software can make Santa's Workshop more secure. And so we talked about the design of the L, design of Santa's Workshop, how to make it more technologically savvy and like streamlined. So we talked about how would a sleigh look like, and then they supplied me some of the images of their actual product that they would use, like the webcams, the security cameras, their internet hub and whatnot. And then so I would work with them to kind of figure out the layout, and then I just do some thumbnails and go from there. As an example, that's one of many, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome that you guys kind of get to do something different every day. I think that's something that a lot of students are interested in. So now let's backtrack just a little bit to your days as an undergraduate student at UCSB. So how did you get started in your career as related to the education experiences and the skills that you gained here?
Totally. So backtracking to my time in Santa Barbara, I went in as an art major actually, but kind of related, but I didn't choose specifically Santa Barbara for art. And I told Melanie this earlier, but I went there to run track. And so I kind of went there on a more of a student athlete kind of mindset in addition to doing art. But then I ended up not doing track and I did the crew. I was on the rowing team instead. And so through the rowing team, that kind of gave me more discipline and direction to kind of stay focused on art. And from there, I just kept taking other design classes. I think it's changed a lot, the curriculum. I was more of an art studio major, so I did a lot of painting, drawing, sculpture. And then computer arts wasn't really happening when I was there as much as it is now. And so, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did like running keep you integrated more into art?
Well, I think it kind of gave me just a balance or an outlet where I was always focused on academics, or in the art studio, I had this other element that would kind of be a stress release as well. And so being a student athlete at the time definitely helped me just kind of provide a different kind of sense of energy, I guess. And then some of our coaches at the time, they also worked within, were also UCSB instructors or professors. So they kind of gave guidance and advice, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would you say was the most useful things that you learned in your major that you ended up using in your career, and your favorite parts of it?
Yeah, I think one of the things I kind of learned or kind of developed is just the communication aspect of really talking with my classmates, because a lot of it, and I'm sure Lorenzo can attest when he is that just kind of networking and kind of get to know who your classmates are, because you never know when you'll cross paths or when you'll meet up again. And so I took that skill of just being not really being social, but definitely being willing to say hi or introduce myself to grad school and even to other elements of working within the industry or freelancing, especially as a freelancer, right? Because you have to hustle. You really have to put yourself out there to recruit or find clients who are not coming to you. So you got to build up your reputation as an artist, as a designer. So having that ability to kind of really make connections helps.
Yeah, definitely. Were a lot of your clients later, or some of them, like people that you had known from UCSB, or how did you get to finding your clients when you were doing freelance work?
Not directly UCSB, but so I did crew in college, and so after I graduated, I continued to row for a master's program while in grad school, and after grad school was done. And because of rowing, though, because of that master's program, I met one of the rowers in that program. Brought me on for this mobile game company in San Francisco, so that's how I worked with him. And so even though it wasn't directly Santa Barbara related, it was rowing related, and I started rowing in Santa Barbara, so that's kind of like the connection through that.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's so fun when you still like can make use of your connections later. So putting yourself in the shoes of a current UCSB student who are exploring their career options, specifically options within the design field, whether that's freelance or maybe something else, how can UCSB students find their path to their career and clarify what it is that they want to do, and how did you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I didn't do was take advantage of like these career panels and counselors. And it's not really a good thing, but in all my 4 years at Santa Barbara, I never met with a counselor. I never met with a guidance. And so that would definitely be helpful to kind of provide options and information as to what you can do with your degree, or what you can do to kind of pivot your degree and build upon that. So this is one of those instances. Another one is to continue networking and just maintain your connections. And as an instructor, one thing I encourage my students to do is always talk to your instructors. Like go visit them in their office hours, ask them questions, because a lot of times they have peers or friends that are working in the industry, and they can provide internship opportunities or provide resources that can really get you on the next step to success, whatever that looks like.
Definitely. So you definitely wish that you do feel like finding or clarifying your path would have been easier with a counselor, and because you didn't do that, like how did you figure out your own path?
I don't know if it would be easier, but also for me, I'm pretty like I wouldn't say independent, but I just like kind of doing whatever. Not that I don't
Yeah.
care, but I just kind of go about my thing. So it could have been more challenging if I did a career path, because I feel like people telling me what to do, and I don't really like that too much. But I think having just the resources available and being aware of what was out there, because I really wasn't too aware. Because I know I talk about rowing, but I think those of us who did crew or other sports, we always joke that, oh, I studied or I majored in rowing and I kind of minored in art kind of thing. But so if I had that more resources, probably could be more, or for students to take advantage of that, they could help them. More
Yeah,
guidance. Yeah.
definitely. All right, so it also looks like we have Lorenzo who just jumped on. So we're going to jump into his background story really quick, just to give an overview before he gets to speak. We're so grateful to have him here today and able to work out the technical difficulties. But Lorenzo is a digital media specialist as well. He's a designer and entrepreneur based in the Los Angeles area. He received a design and applied arts degree from the College of Creative Studies at UCSB and offers a background in architecture, 3D design, web development, and graphic design. And he's worked for CBS television studios on video trailers and creative design, and he now works as a freelance designer and is a small business owner. And he serves clients with a personalized touch and prides himself on using his imagination and creativity to tell his clients' stories. So we're going to go back really quick and just hear some more of the start of his journey from him. So Lorenzo, could you tell us what a day in your life normally looks like?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing to start my day usually. True story, I usually start my day with a cup of coffee. It always helps me jumpstarts my ideas. And I'm an overthinker at times. And as funny as it may be, when you're really design oriented and I'm usually artist at first. So I usually start off looking at my sketchbooks and being able to just learn how, like, just visualize how my day is going to go. And from there, I tend to work on what's important my brain is really scattered. So I would go from what's the most important thing to take care of from like the least most important thing. Like, so I would have to organize with my clients, especially I have two businesses right now, one is called Off the Branch Designs. It was called Enzo Designs, but I was in the procedure of changing it anyway. But from there, I usually work with clients around the food industry, jewelry industry, around downtown and LA, helping small businesses alike who needs help with their marketing, their video editing, but at the same time, in terms of like web development and just security for their small business online. And then at the same time too, I have a coffee company, which is really ironic because you see Santa Barbara is, they're known for two co-founders of two major coffee chains in the US, which is Pete's Coffee and Coffee Bean, which is really ironic. So my other small business is called Vibrant Tree Coffee, and we're going to be opening a coffee shop later this following around June, July-ish. And the most exciting thing is that we get to work with corporate clients, and at the same time we get to work with small businesses plus regular people by teaching them coffee. I've been a barista for about 7 years now. So when I say 7 years now, I still practice coffee by teaching in Zoom platforms. So that's a pretty neat thing, as I say. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you get started in, more specifically, your design career? And I know that you went to the College of Creative Studies, so maybe you can discuss that. But yeah, how did your education and experiences and skills you gained at UCSB lead you to where you are today?
So funniest thing was I entered the school with a very design aspect in terms of like viewpoint. So a good example would be when I entered my art classes, a lot of my classmates were like, "Oh, what type of what type of sculptures you're gonna make, or what type of beautiful drawings you're gonna make." For me, it was all about the procedure, like, like the technicalities of what it means to create a great art, and how will it impact someone emotionally, and how will it change, in my case, the world, right? So I was lucky enough to be with teachers like Richard Ross and Lisa Jevbrat and Kip Fulbeck to be there to really push me. And I was really lucky. It sounds so funny because, I was, I was in that triathlon team for a good year before I got hurt. And what's so funny is that, he was in rowing and you guys were talking about rowing a few minutes ago. For me, it was in that same case for me where I was an athlete as well, coming from varsity basketball in school, long distance running, and long distance swimming, and then transitioning from college. And that was a really tough thing. So for me, as an artist, I was always an avid illustrator and drawer, but I was always a big believer on thinking and being able to create art to solve problems was always my biggest aspirations when it comes to just how can I apply art to the everyday world. That was always the biggest question for me. So
That's awesome, and that's so cool that you did find a way to do that. So if you put yourself in the shoes of UCSB students now, I kind of talked to Jordan about this, but how would you direct UCSB students to find their career path or clarify what field of design they want to go into, or how to make a business out of that?
So funny thing what Jordan was saying, right? He says not many people do take advantage of the career center. And I think that's the most important thing right there, is to really go to your career center, talk to your career counselors to help you around and give you a sort of direction. I think a lot of college students tend to come on and be like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared, or okay, I'm ready to be given a job. And to me, as one thing about being a UC Santa Barbarian, as I say, the most important thing is it's being able to think. And I really took this to heart. Richard, I repeat this so many times, that Mr. Ross in the art department, a lot of people find him really scary, right? He wears the wackiest fashion, and it's really colorful, and he has the coolest hair, and he has the glasses, and people are afraid of him. And there's a reason why I bring him up, is because when I first walked onto the school and I had his class, he talked. I forgot the first class it was. It was about conceptual art and how you apply it in everyday life. And he told us on stage in the Ivy Auditorium, he was, how would you guys change the world, and what do you guys want to apply from it? And for him, it was about photography and being able to change it through stories. And that inspired me to, really having that type of drive. So going back to it, not to, sway away from what students should do, it's not being afraid of what you want to do and being an open-minded thinker. For me, I was really lucky enough for the school and, obviously to be in UC Santa Barbara to give you that space to play. I call UC Santa Barbara a playground of really creative ideas and being surrounded by not only creative thinkers, but genius and motivated and driven people. And I feel like if you learn how to talk to people, connect with people, and be like, hey, I have an idea. Let's do this right away. Oh my gosh, let's create this interesting art project, or let's draw the 7-foot let's draw a 7-foot mural in, I don't know, in front of Embarcadero Hall, something like that. Just something to really incite emotion and feeling. That's a good way to start, because not many students know this. I think it's all about really just finding their spark and going from what they want to do and being able to find how you're going to apply it in the everyday world. It's going to take a lot of failures and attempts and trials. So those are my two biggest advice, if anything, so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's, I think, advice that everyone is glad to hear, because it can be scary to step outside the box a little bit. So how did you guys, what was the first thing you guys did when you kind of got out of college and went into the design field, and how did that journey progress?
So for
And you can
me,
both speak on this too.
okay, cool. I was like scared. I didn't know.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
go ahead, dude. Go ahead.
No, go for it, Jordan. No,
Oh,
you
well,
start.
well, no, for me, so I went right to grad school actually after Santa Barbara, because I knew at the time I wanted to be more so an animator and get into the animation industry. And at Santa Barbara really didn't have that department. I don't know if they do now. So I went back home, Bay Area Academy of Art, and I became a 2D. I was studying 2D animation in the grad school program. But then I pivoted though. Because I found like 2D was very tedious in that we just draw with pencil and paper, which is great,
Yeah.
but we just draw things over and over again, right? So I shifted towards visual development. And also, I was talking to Melina this earlier, I wanted to also get into teaching more specifically. And so becoming a visual development artist, I could play with more of my painting skills, my sculpture skills, my pastel, drawing.
Your
And so
forte.
yeah, exactly. Go back to the beginnings of stuff, right? And so from there, I did that degree. But then with teaching, there's a process for getting a teaching career all on its own. And so I just transitioned into working for mobile gaming and production companies all along the way until I became a teacher full time.
I love that.
Yeah, so that was my journey right from Santa Barbara. And I did some, jobs here and there. It's funny, Lorenzo talks about being a barista. So when I was in grad school, I actually worked at Starbucks as a barista, and so coffee is definitely a thing, especially as a rower or a triathlete. Funny, a lot of my rowing teammates actually, they segued from crew if they couldn't row anymore. They did triathlon at Santa Barbara. Some of them still do that now.
That's true.
So there's a lot of crossover, which is great. But I think, yeah, so that was my transition out of Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Go ahead.
No, I love that. Yeah, no. So what Jordan was saying, yeah, it's not like we're very similar when it comes to coming out of Santa Barbara. I again worked at Starbucks. Funny thing, Jordan, that's true.
Right,
I actually worked at Starbucks. Yeah. But so for me, I was more of I'm not gonna lie, I'm a very hard-headed man at times. So I tend to stick on what I want to do and what my passions are about. So Jordan went straight to, as what, I remember he said, you went straight to art school in San Francisco and really went on. I didn't go to necessarily, again, an art school. I did a lot of just practice at home. And for me, I was just barista part-time and really just working and honing my skills within design and practicing it through storytelling. And so for me, it was a lot of, Jordan, obviously, I'm not saying his was like a straight path. You can tell he went through his own journey. That was mine too. I had little bumps in the road where I worked with clients, small-time clients. I picked it up by just being aggressive, learning how to connect with people on LinkedIn, learning how to just email people, going around and being personable, and just having the confidence and having the optimism to, I think, to really just having value for yourself and being able to give value to others is the most important thing, especially if you're going to do design. And design for me is important because I always emphasize on design thinking a lot. And I'm not going to lie, that idea, that theme has always helped me out in any situation, as I say. So when I was coming in, when I was doing the thing, I was lucky enough to bump into my friend who worked at in the entertainment industry, especially where she specialized as an executive producer for CBS. She worked on. I was lucky enough that she worked on studios like. She worked on. Oh my gosh, Why Women Don't. Oh my God, I can't remember. Forgetting the show. Brooklyn 911. There you go. So I was like really lucky for that. And she gave me the opportunity. She's like, "Oh, Lorenzo, I can tell, like I see your like small portfolio. Again, guys, if anyone's doing anything, keep your portfolio safe with you and put it online. Really organize it in a way where people can understand who you are and what is it that you want to do." So for me, I fell in love with editing. I fell in love with video editing. So that was a lucky break for me. But one thing I learned, especially in the entertainment industry, transitioning in, the tough part about it was that, you know, you're following under someone's lead. And I'm not saying I'm against that, nor do I oppose that. But I did want to work with clients who were much more, I guess, as I say, in my view, it's someone who struggled with their vision, the way how I struggled with my vision when I was in school, and how can I help them tell their own story. So it was videos. How do you apply, you know, graphic design on their websites to making sure that their products and their services are emphasized through their overall their overall business theme. So that's what I wanted to. So that's what I learned, especially on the CBS set. It was, how can you apply a visual vision in terms of filmography to photography and awesome, like just even small graphic design skills. How do you apply that? And that's what I learned so far. And ta-da! And lucky for me, just in time, I was able to apply that towards my coffee business plus my own business, my own online business as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're getting a few questions in the chat from students. So I'm going to ask you guys some of those. Starting with, this student says that online school has been really draining. So they don't know if this is a problem for everyone else, but they don't want to start grad school online. Do you guys have any advice of things to further your design skills outside of school, but other platforms that you found information on or developed yourselves?
Yeah. Lorenzo, you want to go? Because I can definitely talk about this as well, but go ahead, man.
You guys can both take turns like you were. That works.
Okay, no, Jordan's really being nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. No, let's see. Well, because Jordan, obviously he did grad school and all that, but he did it at the campus, I'm guessing. So for me, I never did grad school, but if you are doing school online, I did take classes and courses online to just perfect my skills as a designer. What's funny is that Jordan did say 2D animation. I started practicing 2D animation and 3D animation on my own. And I love animation. It's always been my favorite. And I know here's one thing that's really funny. I love anime. So people who do love anime, and it's been blowing up all over. I've noticed that's what got me into it. I've been a huge comic book anime fan ever since I was a kid. So that's what kind of drove me to just storytelling in general. But going back to it, for people learning, really there's many resources online, especially like what you want, if you want to learn anything. It's just, how can you organize yourself and just schedule yourself, and really just applying it to a project that you want to do. So for me, the biggest thing was I started to create small projects, like creating my own video game, for example, to even being able to make my own stories, my own film, and my own videos. And from there, I'm like, okay, how would I apply this in an animation type of sense, to graphic design type of sense, to even just simple motion camera capture type of animation. Like, how would you do that? And from there, it started to build. Like, I didn't know the process, but what I was lucky enough was, you really have to learn along the way, and being able to take all the skill sets. And we're all lucky enough to have the internet, right? As I say, YouTube University has always been a big thing for everyone, right? And so from there, really apply what others have learned, and really just use their techniques, and see what you want, and try to pick and choose. And I think from there, you will start to really learn about your own craft, and how you can apply it to your everyday projects.
Yeah, for sure. I think, kind of piggybacking off what Lorenzo was saying, I think a lot of students, especially in undergrad, feel like they graduated, or they're close to graduating, so the learning stops, the journey ends. And really, it doesn't. Even as adults, we're continuing learning new skills, and looking on social media, online, and kind of being inspired by others. And so I say that because your journey can either continue formally, right? So for me, it was a formal education because I went to grad school, or it could be informal, where you're self-learning and you're reading books or resources. So make sure you have that in mind, right? Because it is a journey, right? I think, like earlier Milena asked, like, what's a quote I have? And one is like, embrace the struggle, right? And be persistent, because everyone's path to their career is different, and that's okay. A lot of times people don't hear that. And just hearing, myself speak and Lorenzo, we all have different journeys, but we kind of ended at the same destination of having a career, right, in the visual arts, which is what we wanted. And it sounds like that's why you're here too. So just be mindful of that. And then in terms of the question was like online learning, right, or grad school. And so as an instructor teaching at higher education, don't worry, student, whoever asked that, like the professors are feeling it too. We are exhausted of teaching online. We don't like it. We definitely prefer the in-person. I'll say, let me backtrack. I'd say most prefer the in-person. I think there are some who prefer online teaching. But I definitely prefer in-person. And one of the reasons is because that synergy, right? You can get in a room. I know Lorenzo brought up the instructor Kit, right, at Santa Barbara, right? So for me, I remember Kit very well because I took art, performance art or something, Art 4A or something. Yeah, is that the course, right?
Yeah.
And so I say that because like that class really, I don't think can be taught online because it really requires people to interact and be involved with one another. And I'm remembering my project for that class. Real quick tangent, if you had one, we were my classmate and I, Sharif, we were like cabana boys, and like we'd put in these characters of these cabana boys working here at Santa Barbara from somewhere else, and we were giving massages and making like virgin daiquiris. It was great.
It's so funny, yes.
But that synergy though, so we miss that, and so I think for those of you looking for continuing education to grad school online. When I was in grad school, I did take some online classes, but they weren't studio classes. They were like art history and lecture stuff. And so I think it just kind of filter out what classes you want to find online. And again, to Lorenzo's point, there's a lot of great stuff out there that you can just watch and learn yourself on YouTube videos. There's Patreon, there's Gumroad, right? There's there's Skillshare, I think is another one. But make sure you filter out the good ones, because again, there's so much out there. So as much as there's great ones, there's some really bad ones. And so to my students, I say, be mindful of what you're looking at. And if you want to know what's like legitimate or like teaching you the right things, don't hesitate to ask, because you definitely don't want to watch something and be learning a skill, because that could only impede your growth as an artist. So just be mindful of that. Right. So I don't know, anything more? Is there anything?
Definitely, great answers.
Okay.
I was just going to say too, I think YouTube University is always a great go-to if you just want to learn some quick skills like Lorenzo mentioned. And I'm definitely feeling the toughness too of online. We're getting quite a few questions, so I'm going to try and get to everyone. So maybe if we can keep our answers like slightly more concise so everyone gets those answered. But of course, give your insight too. We want your insight. I just don't want to leave people hanging. So what was each of your processes for creating your personal brand, and what inspiration did you guys use?
Okay, so I'll start. Okay. So for me, my inspiration was, it's a little funny, a little ironic, and I say ironic a lot because it's I love the tech industry. So for me, I'm lucky enough, I have friends who do work in tech, right? Very as I say, very formal when it comes to their education skills, but at the same time, my inspiration was always, it's really funny, Steve Jobs and his designer, John Ive, the one who designed the original iMac, and from there, the iPhone and the iPad. For me, the reason why they're my inspirations in terms of like just what my viewpoint is and how it drives me today was, Jobs was a visionary, and he was your typical like Silicon Valley story, right? Dropout, but for him though, his inspiration was all about being able to change an industry, especially in the tech industry, through storytelling. And I know people are like, what do you mean? Jobs with his designer, emphasized a lot about making UX UI, if anyone knows about that, user interface, just user interface friendly. Jobs was actually the forefront. I always say the grandfather of that, and many people don't realize that because he made things much simpler. He was a visionary before his time because he planned on creating a computer that, now obviously dominates the market today through just simplicity. Not many people, and many people wouldn't have known that unless they have really gone through it. And so for me, I was able to take a lot of his life lessons just by reading his books and knowing what he's gone through, and his designer. And going back to it, it's like, for me, it was being able to see people who have those typical types of drives and being able to pick up information, not necessarily just in a university. I mean, lucky enough, I had great teachers like your guys' selves. Obviously, you guys are online, and that's the tough part. But being able to reach out to different teachers and being able to reach out to different mentors and looking at people who inspire you, just picking up small things like that will create the difference maker between succeeding and failing. And in life, I always tell people, do enjoy failing. Failing for me, is such an enjoyable process because you understand who you are, you understand your vision, you understand your ideas and your own way of communicating. And to me, that's a very important thing, especially when taking this process.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to Lorenzo's point, we was talking earlier about how he found his brand. He was talking about what he liked and being true to himself. And so I think that's one of the things students need to realize is that whatever style you try to develop or how you want to create your logo or brand yourself as an artist, make sure it's true to who you are and the type of art they like to create. So real quickly, how I came with my brand is, and I laugh because the story is interesting, is that like I said, I was on the rowing team. And so I identify as being Chinese. Among other Asian ethnicities, but I'm Chinese, one of them. I was born the year of the monkey. And, but on the rowing team, I would do this monkey thing. I'll keep it, I won't go into details, but I did this monkey thing. And so people started calling me Monkey Boy. And so that's how I developed my Monkey Boy illustrations. Because oh, Monkey Boy, that's cool. And I was obviously an art major, and I did illustrations. But Monkey Boy illustrations is definitely a more lighthearted name. But it's okay because my style is very lighthearted or like cartoons, comics, right? I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to be a cartoonist. I still am, right? So I have a published comic book that I was colorist on. You can buy it on Amazon, and I'm writing a graphic novel now, or several of them. And my point is, though, make sure whatever you decide to name your company or brand yourself or the designs you want, they're reflective, again, of who you are, your personality, because like people can smell a fake pretty easily, especially, man, right, Lorenzo, in the entertainment industry, right? And so who you know and how you behave. And so people will remember you for being a nice guy or a nice person, or for being, not so nice person, so it matters, right? And so it's a very small world, even though it seems very large. 6 degrees of separation is a thing. And so just be mindful, the art you put out is reflective of who you are, and it's your true visual voice, right? And so make sure that's what you do.
Awesome. Okay. Great advice from both of you guys. Thank you for that. So I'm going to combine some questions here. So students are asking, they're saying they're very interested in visual development and want to learn more about how to gain experience in it and get into the industry. And also a student in addition asks, because UCSB only has an art degree, how do you think having just an art degree looks on a resume when applying to jobs that are specific to the design field? For example, applying to a graphic design job, but only having an art degree. Do those things matter, and how do you get into those industries?
Man, that's a great question. So real quickly, visual development stuff. I think visual development, even though I mentioned it's in film and animation, really it's a process of the pre-production phase of something, of an idea, right? So Lorenzo talked about looking at a sketchbook early in the morning. And that's essentially what visual development is, right? It's sketching out real loose or as detailed as you want the finished product that you're visioning of an idea, right? So, and then it encompasses either line work, it encompasses pen and ink, it encompasses grayscale value studies, color studies, right? And so how you can get into that is, one, just on your own daily practice, constantly sketch every day. I have this phrase I do, it's called sketch to death, and just draw and draw until you're tired of it. Well, not tired of it, hopefully you don't get tired of it, but just draw all the time. And then look at the art of books, of film, of TV shows, right? Look at that stuff and be inspired by other artists, because that's the formal part of it, right? Is visual development and film and production. But really, on a more simple level, it's just really stuff we do, the conceptual phase of a finished product. And then art degree, I think Lorenzo can add more of this, but in terms of art degree as graphic design, that's tough because, especially for myself working in higher education, art is such a broad topic, right? And so really what you want to do is, definitely say what your degree is in, but then also include like specific areas of focus within that art studio. For example, I did art studio, but I focused really on charcoal and graphite drawing. And that within art, you learn the principles of design, right, which are applied to graphic design. And so you can sell that as a point of emphasis if you want to get to graphic design, but make sure you include stuff in your portfolio, like Lorenzo was saying, that's very specific to the job you want.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. So what Jordan was saying was that, with visual development, it's just based on practice and really just go all out. Take your time and actually put in the energy and your passion into what you're creating, because it's going to create itself, as I say. And, the hard works of your labor is going to pay off once you really apply those practices. But really transitioning through was the art degree for people coming in there. So for me, it isn't just necessarily about, obviously, yes, true, art degree is scattered, right? And people are afraid of what can you do about it and what can you do with it? But then I tell people, one, do create your portfolio and learn how to organize it. And number two, create a base for yourself that expresses your identity. So when I say base, it would be a website, social media, or any online platform that holds that portfolio. The reason why I emphasize this all the time, because when I was at the entertainment industry, when I was picking up clients, the most important thing they asked me was, number one was, where's your business card? Or number two would be, where's your website? Mm-hmm. Like, where's your work? And I'm telling you now, if you have a website, obviously, if you're not necessarily a web developer, I was lucky enough to practice, to do coding and everything. But like, if you are not a web developer and you don't need to, there's a lot of awesome website builders out there like Wix and Shopify that could give you that same type of presentation. But also going with it, what I wanted to add was that just learn how to express yourself and learn how to organize yourself on your platform to really present yourself well. It's all about presentation. It doesn't matter the type of, it does matter in some case, obviously if you want to go towards a higher education type of fields to a higher, as I say, if you're looking for higher positions in management, it is important. But also what is important too, what I've learned so far, especially in the entertainment industry and just working even with businesses, a lot of these people I've noticed either had just an associated degree or didn't have a degree, not even related to this particular field. People who were working in CGI were actually they were just assistant directors walking around before serving them coffee. And I was like, what? Now you're working, technology. How are you working with, how are you working with rigging? How are you working with people in costume and sets? How do you know about the mathematics? They told me what I'm telling you, which is I learned just by going with it. I learned by asking people. I learned by really just looking online, looking at classes, and just working hard every day and putting myself out there, presenting myself to giving myself the opportunity to succeed. And that's what makes the difference between your degree becoming important or your degree not important. It's all about your emphasis and what you want to become. And you choose your path.
Yeah, awesome. It's definitely important that we emphasize like our other skill sets because a degree isn't always everything, like you guys said. Um, so we're coming to a close pretty soon, students. So if you guys want to send in any more questions, do that now. And then for you guys, I just kind of want to ask kind of a close-up question. So considering the unique aspects of each of your individual journeys, what additional thoughts might you have to share for students navigating their career journeys through the lenses and experiences of their unique backgrounds as well? And what is just any overall advice that you are wanting to leave with up-and-coming designers?
Yeah, great question. So real quickly, because I'll keep it short.
Oh, no worries. What
Yeah, don't be
express
don't
whatever
be
you want to leave
nah,
us with.
but don't be afraid to pivot your career along the way. I know for me, like I said, I went to grad school with one intention, then left with another, and then even now as an instructor, right? I'm teaching now, full time. I love my job, but again, I want to pivot, and so I recently started an art nonprofit education called Illustrative Voices, and that's a social justice platform where we provide a space for artists to illustrate the social inequities that they experience and on a larger platform, and then inform and educate others of what's going on in the world or in their experiences. And on top of that, right, we teach art education, so art classes, illustration, drawing, life drawing, etc. And so I say that because it almost never stops, really. And so embrace that. Like I said, embrace the struggle and be persistent. There are hardships along the way, and always hustle, especially as from a freelance mindset. That's what we need to do, right? We need to put ourselves out there, like Lorenzo was saying. Be ready, with that extended hand. Have your business card, have some point of contact, so others can get a hold of you, and just keep on it. Yeah.
So for me, I always keep a quote in my bedroom. I always start with a small motivation, which is love what you do. I wake up, I wake up, I always try to wake up grateful, and I always emphasize on being alive. It sounds really cringy, but I tell people all the time, every day is a blessing, and then every day is an opportunity to grow. So just love what you do. In anything you do. And if it's something that you love, you're willing to go all out, and you're willing to actually put time and effort into it. And it's what Jordan says. You don't necessarily have to go 120% and feel like a failure if you fail. You can change pivots in your career and make a difference in any shape or form. It's just about how you love something, how you carve out something for yourself, and how you pursue it. And to me, the most important thing about that is that when it comes to loving what you do, you tend to live life much better, and you tend to live life with such optimism and pride. And it's all about really just giving yourself the chance to grow and succeed, and knowing that failures will come along the way. That's one thing I'm going to tell you now, a big advice, is that you're going to trip, you're going to fall. And a lot of people have told me, well, what if, you entered, CBS, good for you. But there were days when I didn't enjoy it. And to be honest with you, that's the reason why I transitioned and created my own business of the branch, because I believed in creating stories that was much more meaningful to the heart. And that I believe that I have something to offer. And that belief towards myself gave me the opportunity to take that path. And last but not least, being able to give yourself that path and that opportunity to grow will give you that, I think, that peace that we all look forward to at the end of the day. When you go to bed, because you may have a nice job at the end of the day, but if you don't enjoy it, no, it's okay. If you may have a job like in the tech industry, in the medical field, or even in the design field, but if you don't love it and you hate it, you're not going to produce your best work. You're never going to give 120%. You're never going to enjoy it, and you're just going to shorten your imagination every time you come into work. So do something you love, go out there and really do chase it. And believe me, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing is have a hobby, like have some kind of release that's not related to work.
I love that. Yes.
Definitely. Thank you. There were so many great takeaways I know I took from tonight, and I'm sure all the students can as well. And I'm thanking you for them. But thank you, Lorenzo and Jordan, so much for taking the time out of your guys' week to chat with us and instill your wisdom from your journeys upon us. And students who tuned in live will receive an email with the speaker's contact information. So feel free to follow up with our panelists. And this
Yeah,
is an
please,
important step
sure.
to take as a college student because we're all still trying to grow our networks to success. And also know that UCSB Career Services is here for you, and don't be afraid to just make the leap and say hi or drop in if you need some help. Like Jordan and Lorenzo had said, they wish they did. And yeah, thank you so much again. I'm so glad that we got to have this opportunity. Take good care, everyone, and stay safe, and we can do this.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Okay,
bye,
bye everybody.
guys.